Welcome back to the Angel Clark Show. We are chatting with Survivor Jack. SurvivorJack.com is his website. Jack, I want to thank you for sticking around. I really appreciate it. And would you like to get back to some of the things that we should have in our cars in case of an emergency?
Absolutely. You think of emergencies where people run off the road. We had a lady just last year who ran into a ditch and was there for several days trapped in her car. So we talked about tools that could help get us out of the vehicle, but in the car with us, we carry our kind of family policy is we start with a case of water, and when we get to a half a case, we buy another case of water. And so we've always got plenty of water. We keep blankets, maybe logical stuff like that. But the thing that I often hear people overlook, Angel, is they forget that, let's say, and this one came from a story a guy was telling me about fleeing Katrina. And he and his family got out on the Lake Pontchartrain Bridge, which is miles across this lake. And they were on the bridge when the storm hit. He said, then the kids start yelling, they're scared and crying right that. And then sooner or later, one of them goes, I got to go to the bathroom. You got to let me out. Where do you get out to go to the bathroom in the middle of a hurricane on a bridge?
You don't.
You don't. So if you had something like a number 10 food can, that's one of those big old coffee can, family sized, or what you think of as the big food containers that you see sometimes, they're very standard. And it's got a plastic lid. And by the way, you can pick them up where people do gardening very often, because if they're canning their own food, those are common sizes. But you could put in a roll of toilet paper, 4 large double-sealed plastic freezer bags, for example, and hand sanitizer and wet wipes, few candy bars or some sort of nutritional things in there as well, a couple of first aid items in that little can. And you want to keep that in the main compartment, because if you can't easily get into your trunk, you don't want it where you can't get to it. You want to make sure you can reach it. And that same thinking about sanitation very often is forgotten in home scenarios. I hear people go, oh, yeah, we got all this water and we got all this food and we got all these guns and ammunition. And I'll go in the sanitation supplies and they go, well, yeah, we got a few rolls of toilet paper.
Right? Like, that's not going to do you very much good if you can't get to the store for months.
Right, exactly. And if your wife needs sanitary napkins, or or you're going to have sex and it's a bad situation and you're out of, well, good heavens, you should have pre-thought of these things. People's biological functions still continue no matter what aspect of our life, and you need to be ready to deal with things like that. So those kind of basics sometimes we overlook in the haste to think, well, how do I build up my food supply? And you know what? Adding extra food to begin with is as easy as buying one extra can of whatever it is you love. And we go home and we date them with magic markers because it's hard to read the little expiration dates, and we really don't care. We just use the oldest food first. And we keep adding one more can. Well, suddenly you go from having maybe a 5 to 7 day food supply, and you look around and you go, you know what? I'll bet we could get by at least a month now. And if you can stretch that out, or if you want to go into the then longer storage term foods, the things that'll store for 10 to 20 year kind of food items, great, go that way. But begin by starting with what you can do and do quite easily. And then look at your house and say, okay, if something happened and there was civil unrest and people were trying to get to me, what would I do to defend my house? And we've talked about, that you can carry personal weapons, or you could look and say, this is the way that I would try to make myself unattractive to people. I always laugh in the Well Done movie. It's extremely good. That was recently out with, I believe it was Matt Damon, about the biological infection. And I can't think of the name of the movie right now.
I didn't watch that one, but
okay.
What is it that you laugh at in that one?
they had their lights on at night, and they can see people breaking in the dark houses.
Right? They would be running right to the house with the lights on.
Yeah, exactly. They must be pretty well stocked if they've got lights on. I don't care if it happened to be that my electricity was actually on. I don't want to attract attention to myself in a situation like that. So learning the basics, and one of the basics of survival is that space is the best thing you can do. If there's going to be somebody sent me an email the other day. They said, my sister lives in Manila near the volcano. What should she do? And I sent back, the only possible thing is to get as far away as possible. There's no other, a multifunction tool isn't going to help. An emergency blanket isn't going to help. You need to get as much space between you and the situation. And that's true on a highway. That's true if you see people starting to look suspicious and threatening. Put as much space between you and them as you can. Those little things that we don't often think of as survival methods really suddenly become more fundamental. And so I invite you to think of the most fundamental of all, and that is, Angel, yesterday was your last easy day.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean that every day you're alive on this planet, you are aging. Your body will get a little bit less sharp than it was the day before. And if you approach any situation with that thought in mind, that yesterday was the last easy day. And by the way, that's the United States Navy SEALs. And that's what they teach them. Because if you thought yesterday's training class was bad, wait till you see today's training class. Well, that's the way exactly it happens in a disaster. You're put up against things that if your mind isn't right, if you just go, oh, this is horrible and I can't stand it and I don't know what to do, and you suddenly become totally lost in the emotions of, this is too hard for me to handle. Whereas on the other hand, you've got the attitude, you know what? Yeah, yesterday was the last easy day and I knew it. I knew today was going to be this hard. And you put one step in front of the other to save yourself. And that allows you then, hopefully, to save your neighbors, family, friends. But you can't do that unless you've got the right attitude going in. So survival is, somebody once described it as 80% mental and about 20% what you have and what you know.
That makes quite a bit of sense, actually. And I think that also it's very important to mention that it's not just mental and what you have and what you know, but I think there's also a physical aspect of it as well. But we have to step away for just a moment. The Angel Clark Show will return. More with Survivor Jack coming up.
Class isn't over. It's just begun.
This is the Angel Clark Show.